Hello. Alright, so this tutorial is going to be for input action bindings with parameters in C++. So I'm going to show you an example of something that I did in Blueprints, and I created an input for test input, which is just the R key. If we go to, I'll show you, you go to Edit, Project Settings, and then once that opens you go to Engine Category Input. And I already set up a bunch of inputs here, so you can pause the video and like go and do these if you want. And pretty much the test input is just the R key, as you can see here. And then right now I am having a variable which is of type BP floating actor, which is from another tutorial, which is this little cone right here. And I just made it editable, even though I don't really need to make it editable, but I can if I want to. And all I'm doing is printing out the object name if the floating actor variable that I'm using is valid, and in begin play I'm just getting that actor in a very semi-convoluted way. So I hit play, there it is, I hit R, and it prints it out there. So we're going to get that same effect in C++, and then I'm going to show you guys a bonus sort of way, in case if you want to see it, or if you understand what I'm doing, then fine. So I'm going to break these so that way it doesn't run anymore. And then we go into our C++ classes, and by the way, I'm using the third person template. So yeah, and let me get my notes up. Alright, so go into C++ classes, and then I'm just selecting the regular character, but I already have it open in Visual Studio. Once that opens for you, go into here, and this method works with variable pointer or pointer references. It works with any kind of variable essentially. And I also increased the font size so you guys can see what is happening. And I cleaned up a little bit, so that way the component declaration is in a region, and the pre-made variables for movement are here, along with the functions, so that way it's a little bit easier to read. So what we're going to be doing is we're creating a function that will print out to the screen the name of the actor, and we're going to specifically use a floating actor as well, because that way it kind of helps you guys understand it works with pretty much anything. So first thing, uProperty, we're going to create the variable for the floating actor. Edit anywhere, and then blueprint read write category. Well, actually we don't even need read write, so category, and then I'm just going to name this test. So then we're going to do class a floating actor, and then other actor reference, because that's what I'm going to name it. And you can do this with an actor, whatever, you know. So alright, uFunction, and we're going to create our function now, or declare it at least. So it's going to be of type void, and we're just going to name it use, void use other actor. And then the input, the input parameter is going to be of type a floating actor. So we're going to just input that there, and it's going to be a pointer, and then we're just going to name it other actor, and then end the line. Now, because I'm lazy, I'm just going to do this where it creates the definition for us. I mean, this is a pretty useful, handy tip to do in Visual Studio if you're coding in general, because then you don't have to retype it out again and stuff. It just kind of, sometimes it saves time, other times it doesn't, because then it starts loading and having to think what it's about to do. So what are we doing here? Alright, in this function, if other actor is valid, and that's a valid check. You can also do does not equal null pointer, but that's the same thing as just putting in the reference or the variable. And then we're just going to do gengine and then add on-screen debug message, and then it's going to be -1, so that way it will print out multiple times, and then the amount of time we want it to print is, say, 2 seconds. And then the color is going to be fcolor red, and then the string name is going to be other actor, and then get, oh, okay, right, we did not put in the header file, so we're just going to do that really quickly. Floating actor .h. Oops, missed the G. There we go. And if you want to see what the name is, it's right here. Actually, we can really just take that. And this is from a previous tutorial. If you want to go look at it, you can. It's pretty much for timelines. So there you go. Alright. And once IntelliSense loads, but we can just really type it out now and get name. And that should be it. There you go. So, now that we have our function for just what we want it to do when we hit the button, how do we do the input? This is the part that people get confused on, and I did find a tutorial, a text tutorial by Orpheus, or Orpheus, or Orpheus, no wait, Orphaziel, sorry if I butchered your name. I'm going to post the link to it in the description, so that way you guys can go check it out. He gives a much better explanation than I do, but this is meant to just give you kind of an understanding, a basic understanding. So, a input component essentially has a U component, which is sort of like a really complicated struct in a way. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be creating 2 structs, and they're going to be holding values for our input, sort of. Anyway, so first we need a binding, and what we're going to do is we're going to declare our binding inside of the setup input component, because this occurs when begin play is called. And the great thing about this method is that it can, or the way that we're doing this is that we can do this pretty much anywhere inside of the code, or pretty much anywhere in a method and such. We could do it in begin play. I'm doing it in this because it's just good practice, kind of. If you'll see. I'll show you an example of us doing it in begin play later on. So what we're going to need is a f input action binding. All right. And then we're just going to name this action binding, and param, because it's going to have parameters. So then we get the action binding param dot action name. Okay, and what this is an f name, and then what you input into here is, if we go back to Unreal, go back to project settings, the name of the input. So copy and then paste that in. It's pretty much the same as when we bind an action and we have to put the name of what we're binding first. This is pretty much what it is. Then we're going to do this part, which is if it's pressed or whatever. So action bindings param dot key event, because that's pretty much what it is a key. So we just put IE underscore pressed. And now we kind of had half of this done. So now we need the other half, which is this part. Except it needs to be able to take in parameters. And by doing this, what we need is a handler, or a handler signature. So we're going to create one, and it's the second struct, as I said. So we're going to do an f input action handler. Make sure it's not dynamic. Okay, the dynamic one is not what we want. We want this one, f input action handler signature. All right. Then we just name it I don't know, action handler for the purposes of this tutorial at least. You would name it something a little bit more reasonable, obviously, but this is just for this. So then what we're going to do is get our action handler, action handler dot bind, yeah, we're going to bind it. We're going to bind our u function, and then this is the part where we do this, and then we would do a f name, parentheses, and then the name of the function that we want to bind. So we're going to do use other actor, and then comma, and then this is the variable type. So it would be a floating actor. Well, actually, no. Well, the variable type that we would be using to put into that parameter would be a value, essentially. So since we created a variable earlier, other actor ref, we just go into here and put other actor ref. And you can add as many as you want. You can just keep adding a bunch of these depending on if your function needs it. You know, it's really that simple. So yeah, and you can use default values and stuff. If this was, say, an integer, actually that's what we're going to be doing on later, is using integers for these. If we put an integer, we would just put 1 if we wanted, or we could put a variable. But you know, you'll see the meaning behind this. So then we need to combine the action binding parameters. So action binding param dot the delegate, because it needs a delegate, and what this is a delegate essentially. And then we make it equal action handler. All right, so binds or connects the delegate. I learned how to spell delegate recently, so you know, good on me, huh? Connects the delegate to our handler. This is a delegate. I learned how to spell it, not how to type it correctly. Alright, and this is like our input action. This is our input action that we're gonna add to our input component. So we can do input component, and you might be thinking, why not use player input component? They're pretty much the same thing, except input component, if I remove that really quick so we don't get a bunch of errors, if I go over here and begin play, input component, it's the same thing, except input component can be accessed outside of player input, and the one that you put in here is pretty much the same thing. Also, if you ever get the error like input component is like blocking a variable or something like that, you just change the name of this, because they might have changed it to like this, and obviously if you do input component, then it will bug out saying which one are you trying to choose, the one that you can go outside of set up input component or inside of it, you know. So just change the name. You can even just put it as a lowercase I, and that'll fix the issue. Alright, so input, and I'm doing input component just so we can copy and paste it later, because it's not fun typing this out a ton of times. Input component, add action binding, and as I said before, this is the binding that we're going to add to it, so we just type in action binding param, and that's it. So now if we go into Unreal, hit the compile button, and I'm going to go into here, grab our character and place him in the level. Whoops. Well, Unreal broke, I guess. Oh, there he is. Alright, let's drag him up, delete him, drag it out safely, and so here's our floating actor, and we're just going to select the one that's there, oops, I forgot to turn on possess. So possess, and then we control him now. And then if I hit the R key, nothing happens because I am smart, and I forgot something probably. Use other actor, reference, bind action. Why are you not working? Did I set you up with a... Let me see. Test. No, I did not, so that was the reason. So now if we hit play, I always forget this apparently. See, it prints out. I hit R, prints it out. It's going to show his name, and obviously that's what it is. So, now I'm going to show you guys how to do it on begin play. Literally the same thing. We just cut and paste it, and it works works exactly the same way. Alright, so I'll save that. It works exactly the same way. And then compile, wait a few seconds. How's your day going? My day's going pretty cool. I had a nice breakfast. Alright, so we hit play, wait, drag him out into the level. Why do I keep doing that test? There we go. Connect him, and then possess, so we can control him. And then hit R, does the same thing. See? So yeah, that's how we do it with variables. And the reason why we would do that is because, let's say if you create an actor inside of begin play, and then you want to have it where the reference is used with a function and stuff, but when you do it in here, it uses the reference that it currently is as like what it gets passed through. So, and this gets called pretty much at the same time as begin play, which is kind of weird to explain, but pretty much you want to do this right after you created the thing. And one good thing to also do would be check if other actor ref is valid, and then you just do this. And this is just kind of a good thing to do, because then you would have the actor reference and it makes sense, or it's connected, or the reference to whatever you're trying to do, and it's connected, so then you have the inputs binded. It's weird to explain, but it's just good to do this. You can pretty much do this little chunk anywhere in the code, and then when you're binding it, if you're using a variable that's going to be changing a lot, then I would probably rebind it. So just call this chunk of code like when you rebind it, or when it gets bound, or if you're creating an actor and then you want to bind it to that actor, then yeah. So it's just good to know. And I think that's it for the first part. So now the second part. Let me get my other notes open. So now that we have that set up, we are going to, actually, I can kind of reuse it. No, we're going to retype it. We're not going to be lazy. We're going to retype this. So I'm going to leave this there because I don't want it. I'm just lazy. So u function. And what we're going to be doing is a void that will show our currently equipped item. So say I press 1, it equips item 1, item 2, item 3, etc. Oh, why did I do that? Yeah, I'm going to keep that open. And then void, and then equip item. And then I'm just going to use an int. And then we're going to do item to equip. So pretty much we would use a switch statement, and yeah. I mean, you can use whatever for the parameter. I'm just saying this as an example. And once IntelliSense decides to load, I'm just gonna Oop. Takes like a second. Love it. Alright, so now we're going to create our switch statement inside the source, and it's just going to be a switch statement for item to equip for 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to create a default that does nothing, but it's good to have that. So actually no, we don't even need a default. Yeah, so switch item to equip, and then case 1 break. I always do that because it's just good practice in my opinion, but you know, if you hate it, then do your own thing. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So now that we have our switch statement open or set up, because we're just doing 1, 2, and 3, which are the keys that I set up, we're just going to do debug statements to our screen. So we can actually just copy this line and change a few things. So add this to the screen, remove that, and then we just put item 1 equipped. Alright, stop. There you go. And we'll just have this at 0, so that way it doesn't override the current one, or so that way it doesn't list down a bunch, because that, in my opinion, doesn't look good for this case. So then we're going to create it, just copy and paste them, and then we're just going to change the insides of it. Whoops. 2, and then 3, and if you want, you can change the color. I'm going to change this one to green, and then this one to blue. RGB. See what I did? Alright, so now that we have our function set up and we have our parameter, it's pretty much the same thing, except we had to do the chunk of code 3 times, and that's it. It's the same thing, just 3 times over and over. But you have to connect it with the correct input, obviously. So we're going to do that in here, because that's what this component is mainly for, essentially. So I'm going to go into here, into my notes, and scroll down so that way I'm not screwing anything up. And just to help organize ourselves, input 1, or item 1, and then f input action binding, and then item 1 action binding param. Alright, and then what we're going to do is item 1, yep, item 1 param action name. At this point, if you understand how this is supposed to go, you can skip ahead, because this is going to be a lot of typing, or you can stay and do this with me and watch me as I fail at typing. Item 1 action param, and then key event IE underscore pressed, and then we had to create the handler signature. So f input, there it is, yep, and then item 1 action handler. But at this point, if you guys understand what's going on and like you can do this on your own now, you can just end the video. Item 1 action handler dot bind u function this comma, and then the name of it, which would be equip item, and then and you can just do this, you can put f name in front of it, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really affect it, and then we just put the variable type, so that the actual variable, so it's just going to be 1, so it's always going to go to the switch statement case 1 when we hit the item 1 key, which is this one, and it's still 1 key. And then we had to bind the connect the delegate with the parameter, or the parameters. So item param action delegate equals And now at this point, I'm just going to be copying and pasting because I'm lazy. And then player, we can do a player input component since we're inside the input component. So player input component, add action binding, and then we just put this in there. Remember, it's always the first one that you created. So the first struct, essentially. So there you go, input 1 is set up. Now we get to do input 2, so, or item 2. And because I don't like typing out all this multiple times like this, boop, and then we just change all of these to 2. And then that. And then we can just copy and paste this nonsense in there. I think I got everything. Yep. Okay. And now for item 3. That was much faster than having to type it all out, right? And then we do that. And then we just change the number to 3 in these things. And I don't know why I keep going back and forth. Boop, 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 boop. And then copy, boop, boop. And then there we go. Now our inputs are set up. So all we have to do is go back to the engine, hit compile, and then once it finishes compiling, you'll see. I hit 1, it says item 1 equipped. I hit 2, item 2 equipped, and I hit 3, item 3 equipped. I hit 3 again, it shows that. I hit 2 again, I go back to 3, 1, etc. You guys get the idea. So there you go. That's how to do input actions, action binding with parameters. It's a little bit, it's a little bit a lot of stuff, but you know, it's definitely worth it once you learn this. I will be putting the link to Orpheus's tutorial, which is much more extensive than mine, and it's pretty much the same. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and have a good day.